The Immortal John Hancock here, and today I'm going to be sharing my experience of repairing my Nintendo Switch left Joy-Con with you. After about 3 years, my Joy-Con started experiencing some drift issues recently in the past week. After attempting to clean it, it didn't get any better, so I decided to order an analog stick replacement part and go ahead and try to fix it myself. In this video, I am going to be sharing that experience and showing as best as I can how to repair a left Nintendo Switch Joy-Con. And so here we go. Let's take a look. So here's a picture of the kit that I purchased off of eBay. These are available everywhere. There are options to get a single analog stick. I purchased one with two, figuring that I'm going to have to probably replace the other one eventually. So let's take a look at my experience. So here it is. Here's my left Joy-Con. As you can see, it has lots of use. I had a missing piece covering my analog stick, which probably increased the chance of me getting a lot of dirt and grime in there. The kit that typically is sold with these analog sticks has a very cheap tri-wing screwdriver. I recommend getting a better quality one. I tried using the tri-wing screwdriver that it came with and it started stripping my screws. So I don't recommend these cheap tri-wing screwdrivers, just aren't too good. I also recommend putting the small pieces and screws in a dish, or I used a bag of what my kit came in. And so, yep, just be careful. Take your time when opening up these Joy-Cons. There's lots of ribbon cables. They can rip, they can break. You have to be very gentle with them. I use tweezers when doing this project. It makes things easier, but of course I'm not showing that right there. Also, I made a lot of mistakes when doing this. I didn't remove all the ribbon cables. It would have made things easier to work on, but one of the first steps when opening up your Joy-Con is to get the battery out of the battery casing. And so you can carefully remove the battery. I didn't. I just kind of moved it to the side, but you can, using tweezers, remove it and separate it from the Joy-Con. Then you have to unscrew the battery casing from the actual board, the Joy-Con board inside. And these take a standard screwdriver. I found the screwdriver that came with the kit a little bit better. It's just the tri-wing screwdriver is the one that I had an issue with. And so, yes, so these screws are very small. It's easy to lose them. Place them in a part on your workstation that you're not going to lose them, and remember to put them back. So once you open it up, there you can see the small analog stick, and it's covered with a ribbon cable. And so what I did is I just took the standard screwdriver and I just moved the ribbon cable aside and unscrewed it. You have to be very careful here not to tear the ribbon cables. It is very delicate. Just take your time. The top shoulder button there has a little spring, and you just remove that. You have to make sure you put that back properly or it's not going to register. And so be very careful with that. Just take your time when doing this. I found that, you know, moving that ribbon cable aside and just unscrewing it, just take your time. It's the first time for me doing this, and so I was a little bit scared, but you know, I needed to fix my Joy-Con. It wasn't working right, so I used tweezers to take out the ribbon cable. There is a little lever there that keeps them in place. You have to make sure to do that. I didn't do that the first time as shown on this video. So carefully, it takes a little bit of force to get the analog stick out of the Joy-Con casing. So you have to make sure everything is separated before you do so. I use tweezers here to remove the analog stick from the board. And there you have it. It's removed. Next comes the replacement part, which had a different ribbon cable color. Yours may vary in color. And here we go. Putting it in is you just have to make sure it gets through the casing. Make sure it's lined up with the screws, and just be careful. Getting the ribbon cables back in is a challenge, so Take your time when doing that and making sure all of them are connected, or your controller will not work. So that took quite a bit of challenge of doing that, lining things up, not getting frustrated, and using tweezers really helped me. I have fairly large hands, and so using tweezers to get the ribbon cables back into the proper connections really aided me with this project. And it's going to take several times getting that in. If you're like me, it's very small too. Joy-Cons are very small, and the parts inside are even smaller. So it definitely, if you have a magnifying glass or a workstation, enhances the size of what you're working on. Really will help with this project. So I'm fairly non-technical, and so I wanted to challenge myself in doing this because, well, I saw other people do it. Why not? And that's what it takes sometimes, just not being afraid to try something, just to do it. You're only going to get better if you do it over and over again. So getting everything aligned and back together is kind of a challenge. You have to be very careful with this part here. You have to make sure the spring is underneath the shoulder button and on a little platform, making sure that lines up when you put it together, or it's not going to work properly. I got lucky on the first try. And I probably should have separated all the ribbon cables, but I just was being delicate, making sure it didn't break. So putting it back together, it took several tries just to make sure everything aligned properly, and making sure not to pull too hard, especially with it still attached. I would definitely recommend taking that ribbon apart next time if I have to repair this again. Hopefully this repair will last quite a bit of time. So making sure the battery compartment goes back on the Joy-Con board properly, has to line up with the screws, and then you have to then carefully screw it back together. One thing that I forgot the first time and shown on this video is I forgot one of the screws that that it goes into the battery casing, and so you just have to make sure they come back. Again, using tweezers. If you drop a screw, or right here I put the screw in the wrong way. So just having a nice clean work area is going to help you with this, with proper lighting. I was feeling pretty good at this point. I was just worried though, is it going to work? And so definitely just taking your time and making sure everything goes back in the proper place. So there's the battery, making sure it's connected and placed back the way it was originally in there. Making sure the shoulder button has a nice click noise. Everything's back together. As you can see here, I didn't have everything 100% proper aligned. I did have to take it apart again and redo the process to make sure that everything was flush, because when you put the Joy-Con casing back together, if it's not flush, if the board's not proper, it won't go back together properly. You definitely seen the battery light there is important. That is important that you see that, not the battery light, the connection light where it's trying to connect to the switch. It's really important that you see that light on when putting this back together. That tells you that the battery is at least connected properly. So there you have it. Just have to do some minor adjustments here and put the tri-wing screws back together, and there you have it. Let's test this controller. Now, when you get onto your switch, you want to make sure that it's charging. That's really important too, that you have that connected, then make sure that it's charging. And you go to system settings, calibrate control sticks, you press down on the left Joy-Con. That's the one you want to calibrate, at least the one you were working on. Up, down, left, right, and then doing circular motions. I also had my son test this. He said it was working so much better in Animal Crossing. I was really happy to successfully fix it for the first time. Yay! So there you have it. It was a success for me. I do recommend taking your time and being patient when repairing these controllers. They probably will eventually go out. It does concern me that, you know, Nintendo's known for quality, and so even though I've played my Nintendo Switch quite a bit, that the controller is going out within 3 years. And so, but the repair is fairly inexpensive. You know, I think I go back to like the Nintendo 64 and the analog stick issues with that controller, it seems that we have another issue here. So be ready to eventually have to repair your analog stick on your Nintendo Switch, because they probably are going to go. What did you think of this video? Thank you so much for the ongoing positive support. It means the world to me. Please hit that like and subscribe button. This is the Immortal John Hancock. You take care.